Committee of the Whole for July 3rd, 2023 is hereby called to order. First, move to approve the minutes of our May 8th meeting.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. And then our sole remaining agenda item is to discuss the sale of 12900 Madison Avenue. On behalf of the administration, who will be running point to get things started? Director Leininger.
Good evening, Council President Lynn, members of City Council. So the legislation in front of you for the Committee of the Whole meeting, and then again later this evening as part of the general meeting, is for the purchase agreement related to 12900 Madison, the former Youth Division building. We've had a number of conversations prior to this meeting leading up to the purchase agreement that's in front of you, which we did send to the clerk's office for a substitute this evening. After a little bit of back and forth with LCSC and their legal team, we do have an agreement that LCSC has signed, and then with pending approval by City Council, the mayor or I will be authorized to execute that. This is a very standard purchase agreement that the city has utilized and based on purchase agreements that have been utilized in the past. So this should not be that unfamiliar to City Council. Generally, what it does, I'll point out a few of the high points that are in the agreement and can answer any questions from there. Trish Tierney, the Executive Director for LCSC, is with us this evening. First of all, it lays out the purchase price and the down payment. If you recall, the purchase price that was offered was $200,000. We've broken that into two payments, basically a $10,000 down payment that will go in an escrow and due 10 days from the time that this agreement is executed, with the $190,000 balance due at the closing table. LCSC does have the right to inspect the property. They've spent quite a bit of time in it already, but now they need to kind of really get into the details and really understand and get their contractors in to understand the property from their vantage point. They'll have 60 days to do that. They also then have an option to extend for 30 days if so needed. Closing expenses are generally a responsibility of the buyer. The closing is going to occur within 30 days of the inspection period ending, so assuming it's a 60-day inspection period, and this agreement signed later this week. 60 days for inspection, 30 days then from that period ending. There's then warranties that are set out by the seller and the buyer. From the seller standpoint, the city standpoint, we're essentially saying that we've presented all the information. We presented all the information to the buyer so they know what we know, and that on the buyer side, they're not going to hold us harmless for anything that happens during the inspection period. There's a few other sections in there concerning what happens if the property is destructed by an act of God or something just tragic happens between now and the time of closing. What happens if we have a breach? And then there's also some special conditions and deed restrictions. The special conditions basically state, and the deed restrictions reflect this as well, that the buyer will begin construction with 12 months of closing. Granted, their schedule is much faster than that. But the buyer will begin construction within 12 months of closing. They will complete the office component, the first floor component, within 36 months, and then they'll complete the residential component within 48 months. Again, those are outlying dates, knowing that their schedule is much faster, but at a minimum, we want to have some backstops to make sure that the investment that's been stated it's going to go into the property goes into the property. If those requirements aren't met, then it triggers a potential repurchase by the city. We've had very similar language in the Trinity Church project that is now under construction. And then there's a deed, as part of those same special conditions that translate into the deed restrictions, the deed restrictions also have a 5-year hold by LCSC. Otherwise, we split the profits 50-50. And so that's generally an outline of what's in the purchase agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions, and as I mentioned, Tricia and the Executive Director's here as well to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anything else from the administration before we kick off? Any questions from council? Okay. My only question right now is what, if any, substantive adjustments have been made in the interim? You mentioned that there had been some back and forth even today.
So the primary back and forth was related to the timing of when the construction needs to be complete. And certainly Ms. Rooney can speak to from her side on what they were trying to achieve with that. So our original language that we typically use is said that the entire project has to be complete within 36 months. LCSC asked for some additional flexibility on the upstairs, just in the event that something happens, something catastrophic happens to the organization, and they need some additional time, they need some additional funding to complete the upstairs. So they asked for additional 12 months on that. I think the other thing that was requested was the 30-day option, the extension on the inspection period, just to give them a little bit more time to complete their due diligence on the property. Those were the two things that we had a little bit of back and forth on.
Okay, and I'm semi-familiar, but the due diligence period is primarily to do like environmental checks, things of that sort.
Environmental checks, have their contractors go through, just verify the structural integrity, not unlike what we do with it when you're buying a home with a home inspection, just a little bit more detailed.
Sure. All right, thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions? Councilwoman Marks? Oh, Councilman Baker. I mean, I figured you would, but go ahead.
What's that supposed to mean?
You are a development expert for this council.
I'm not an expert. Just
The closest thing we have to it. So
I
go.
stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But thank you to the administration. Thank you, Tricia Rooney, for being here. The one thing I'm curious about, and I'm wondering if you thought about this. I understand how you probably use the template for Trinity with Scalish. The one thing that's different is, there's an ARPA allocation for the purchase price, which would, so I don't think we'll ever get to this point, but, within kind of the repurchase rights, it talks about if they don't do what they're supposed to do within those trigger periods, then the city essentially has the right to repurchase for the purchase price, which is $200,000, plus any improvements that they made during that interim time, but not completion. What would be odd here is that the purchase price would be what we gave them. And so I'm wondering if there was if you guys thought about that and give any consideration to that to make it like a mortgage that's forgivable instead of making it, like basically have their purchase price be zero and then lay around their improvements because we're providing the $200,000.
So we kept the purchase of the property separate from the ARPA allocation, because the ARPA allocation, and how we viewed it is the ARPA allocation is just going into the project, whether it's, yes, it coincides that the ARPA allocation matches the sum for the purchase price. LCSC is actually pulling a mortgage to purchase the property and utilizing the ARPA funds to then pay for the renovations of the property. One of the things we talked about when City Council was awarding the ARPA dollars is what mechanisms are in place to ensure that those ARPA dollars are spent for what they intended for. I don't know if that was embedded into the ordinance or if there's something that we could do to have a forgivable mortgage loan on the $200,000 ARPA allocation separate and apart from this. It just might get a little bit hard. It might be a little bit confusing to mix the two together into this agreement.
Yeah, and Mr. To be clear, I'm not, and I think that LCSC is going to live up to their obligations and produce a very fine facility that serves the community very well. I do think, though, that from a practical standpoint, you could just make the repurchase price zero. But that may be punitive, and I was just curious if there was discussion about it or consideration given to it.
So to your question, we did not have discussion about it. As I said, as we were keeping the two agreement, the agreement for the purchase and the ARPA dollars as a separate items, even though they are related to the project.
And from a practical standpoint, I can understand that $200,000 is to help LCSC find a new home, right? So if there is some catastrophic circumstance by which, and I just wanted to make sure we thought about this, had a discussion about this, because it is unique and it's a little different than Trinity. But in the event that LCSC doesn't live up to its obligations, we repurchase, but LCSC still got the 200 grand for ARPA to find a new home, and they may, use that some other way, or have that money be within their account to do that.
I'll just, Councilman, if I may, Director Leininger, I'll just add, and I know the director's familiar with this. We do have a certification process, but it's standard and it's a form for each recipient, subrecipient of ARPA funds to certify that the funds will be used as applied for. Nobody knows what the legal effect of that is or our police requirements. We're not going to police it, but you could foresee an event where if there's a total derogation of commitment by the sub-recipient, we will be able to claw back as necessary, even if we don't have the repurchase price be zero. There will be other mechanisms for it. Nobody anticipates that will be necessary, but if the concern is we're in a situation where we repurchase for value, and what about the ARPA funds? And it's fine for the organization to use them to find a new home, but in the event that it's necessary, we'll be able to claw back, is our belief, our opinion.
The ARPA funds?
Yes.
Okay. And that, I just wanted to explore that kind of nuance, so I appreciate the administration explaining that.
Very good. Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if the chair would allow, I have no questions based on this ordinance. Congratulate the Community Service Center for being successful, and since we haven't heard since they've won, I would love to take the opportunity to hear from Trish Rooney and just get an update. And I know we're going to get asked, when's the move going to happen, and when can people expect to be receiving services from the new location, things like that, or whatever kind of update you have at this point. Would love to hear. And again, congratulations, and I'm happy to support as one of 7 this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Director Rudy.
First of all, thank you. I know that there's been a lot of time and effort that's gone into this, a lot of discussions, a lot of reviews by council and by the committee from the city. This is our 41st year of existence and the biggest thing we've ever done. We are ecstatic to be getting out of the place we're in and moving into our own space. With the help of Director Leininger, we've identified space on 117th where we can relocate the pantry. That process is going on right now. We have secured, I'm just about to sign a design assist contract with Frank Scalish because I am not familiar enough or knowledgeable enough to run the interference between the architect and the construction and permits and everything that has to be done. So I will be signing that contract with Frank. We have secured Paul Began as our architect. He is in the process of doing construction drawings right now. We have site drawings. I think I shared those with you at some point earlier, but he's doing construction drawings so that Frank can start to put real dollars to this. I think I told you we have allocated $500,000 for the renovation. We are committing $300,000 of our own funds to the project, and with the addition of the ARPA funds, we'll be taking out a mortgage for $200,000, which is very manageable for us. We've actually gone with KeyBank. They've offered us the best terms. It's a five-year term with 20 years amortization. Takes the monthly payment down to $1,200 a month over the whole period of the loan. So we're in good shape we're paying $3,500 a month right now at our rental property. So we'll be able to rent that facility over on West 117th. We're doing some minor renovation over there. We have to build some offices. And we do actually, with the help of Community West Foundation, they identified a donor-designated fund. The gentleman wants to do a pet food pantry. We have done one before at LCSC, but that woman who ran that through the Lakewood Foundation. She doesn't do it any longer. This gentleman wants a family named Pet Food Pantry, so he will assume some of the payment for the rent of that space on 117th. So it's all, so far, falling into place. So I'll update you in 6 months when I hope that we're actually moving. We did extend this time frame just in case that we needed it. If we need a new roof on the building or we find something we didn't expect, we don't want to be forced to have the whole upstairs done, but it does actually make financial sense to do the two at the same time. The only thing we might do is rough in the second floor space and not fully renovate it, but none of us is anticipating that. We're hoping if we get started as soon as we can and pull permits, we're hoping by the January of 2024 that we'll be moved in. And we may move the pantry ahead of time. There's nothing really stopping us moving the pantry. We've got all the electric figured out. Networking guys over in Birdtown is working with Clock Electric to do not only the electric, but also we're going to have internet and capabilities over at the pantry because 3 of our staff will be located there, as well as whoever we hire to manage the pet food pantry. So if you know anybody who wants to be a pet food person, let me know, because that's going to be an interesting report for me. I'm a pet lover, but I've never managed somebody doing pet food. But it works out great. I mean, I'm grateful to Community West for identifying this gentleman. He's a Lakewood resident, lifelong Lakewood resident. He's really excited to do this for people who need the help. So it's going to be a wonderful situation for us. We're very, very, very excited, and I'm very grateful to all of you for taking the time and the effort to take a close look. And I will say it's Lakewood Alive, Ian and I have been colleagues for a long time, and this has been difficult for us at times, but we've come through this. Our friendship is intact, and I'm looking forward. I hear they're moving, so I hope that their new space works out better for them as well. So thank you all, and I look forward to keeping you updated as we move forward.
Thank you. And where's the 117th location exactly?
It used to, I can never think of the name of it. Well, CertainTeed bought it. It's north of Detroit, south of the tracks. It's a large property on the west side of 117th. I don't ever think I noticed it before. They sold it to CertainTeed.
Norton Industries.
Pardon?
Norton Industries.
Norton Industries, yeah. And Tricia Norton Ray is managing the whole process. She's been wonderful to work with. We've been over there multiple times. Frank Scalish is actually taking some of the space for storage in the building, and she hopes to renovate what was the old Packard car dealership at the front, to renovate that in keeping with its history. So they were going to tear down most of the building. I do believe that Swenson is coming in, maybe. They're not going to tear the building down, which is great, because that would have made it difficult for us. But it's a great property. It's dry, which is a big plus for us. It's got a loading dock, which is great. It'll make the deliveries from the food bank so much simpler for us, not to have everything come down to the ground and carted in. So we're excited about the property. It's in great shape, really, really good shape. It just needs to be converted into the space that we need it to be.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice President Keppel.
Thank you. And while I have Michael, I was going to say that Councilwoman Marks has a question here. I just want to know, I had a couple follow-ups. Sorry, I can't scooch very forward with this thing. So the food pantry, is that where your customers actually go, or that's where things are stored?
Now, we stopped having clients come in 2020 and moved to 100% delivery. We thought about opening again. It was a consideration. Having us in 2 spaces is different, but the delivery is working out so well. And I think in 2023, having people line up outside on the sidewalk for food probably isn't reflective of what we want to be and who we want to be. Our numbers are higher now than they have ever been, even higher than the middle of the pandemic. We're running 25% over our numbers that year-to-date last year, and people are signing up. We're getting 10 people signing up a week. But the 3 people that do the deliveries have been able to manage it. We may cut back and not deliver twice a month to everybody, but we haven't made that decision. I hope that we'll be able to continue doing it. The pet food delivery, that'll all be delivery as well. They'll have their own vehicle because we just don't have any extra time. But we're not going to be open for walk-ins.
Great, that was my next question about the pet food also, if that was walk-in.
What we will do, though, at the 12900 Madison, the basement's in good shape. It's not bone dry, but it's not bad, and it's certainly better than where we are. And we probably will have a small satellite pantry there. There's a handful of items that people always want, milk, bread. I mean, I don't know it as well as the pantry people do, but we're talking about putting some refrigeration in the basement over at 12900 so that when clients come in to see a social worker and they need a couple of items to tide them over till they get to their delivery, that we'll be able to do that in that building.
Great, thank you. And then I just wanted to note, I love the provision in the term sheet about utilizing local businesses for the renovation, and I heard you mention several local businesses' names just in your update, so thank you for.
Yeah, and Frank has assured me that the people actually working on the project will be people from Lakewood as well.
Thank you. Councilwoman Marks?
Hi, Trish. I'm excited to have some vibrancy in that building in the very near future. It'll be wonderful to have you in the neighborhood, and I'm sure that the people in the neighborhood are going to be happy that you're there too. So please reach out to me in any way that I can help. I'm happy to do so.
That would be great. Yeah, we're excited to be in that location. It suits it suits us, it suits the clients. It's going to be a great location for us.
It'll be wonderful to have you in the neighborhood.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Even though we'll miss you in Ward 3. Any other questions? All right. With that, anything else from the administration? Okay, I will move to recommend adoption as substituted.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. And with there being no further business before Committee of the Whole, we are adjourned.